It really is an honor to participate in such a monumentous occasion here with all of you. I want to thank Dr. Kovani for inviting me to participate and for her leadership and vision here at TCC. I'd also like to thank Bruce Meyer and Levon Ellis for taking time out of their busy schedules to celebrate the accomplishments of 2014. And many thanks to the state board members for their leadership at all 23 of Virginia's community colleges, as well as the local board members for their focused attention at TCC. Marcus Baker, thank you. What a tough act to follow, but what a wonderful speech. Thank you for your inspirational words. I want to acknowledge Tim Cornett over there. He is for the amazing work he does with our veterans. He works with his colleagues on our Vet Success on Campus program here at TCC. He's the hands and feet of the Department of Veterans Affairs. You and your colleagues make a big difference, and I want to thank you for your service. To the faculty and staff at TCC, thank you for making this school a place where men and women from all walks of life, including veterans, come to learn and grow. Thank you. I know that over this weekend, about 1,800 students are graduating, and more than 33% of them are active duty members, veterans, or family members. I also know that out of the roughly 44,000 students enrolled at TCC, almost 14,000 of them have a relationship with our nation's military. So as you continue cultivating an environment of academic excellence, I know that service members, veterans, and their families from all walks of life will continue knocking on your doors. Finally, and certainly most importantly, I'd like to recognize our graduates of the class of 2014. Along with their spouses and their parents, their families, and their friends, congratulations to all of you for reaching such an important milestone in your lives. Eleanor Roosevelt, the longest-standing First Lady in American history, once wrote, "Freedom makes a huge requirement of every human being. With freedom comes responsibility." John Dewey, a great American philosopher, expanded on this theme, saying that as our society becomes greater and more diverse, our freedom and our responsibilities both increase. That was said more than 100 years ago. I don't know if Mr. Dewey could fathom how true it would be today at 2014. Our freedom increases because we have so many more options, more avenues to pursue, more choices to make about how we impact the world around us. But as these freedoms increase, so does our responsibility to pursue these options in ways that embody and uphold our democracy. Our responsibility to make the preservation and strength of our families, our communities, our cities, and our nation a priority. Our ultimate responsibility for the decisions we make, as well as for those that we don't make. So while the fight to preserve freedom often falls on our service members who have no option for failure, no option, no room to give anything but their best, and who have just spent more than a decade at war, the responsibility that comes with that freedom falls on every single one of us. But how we answer, how we respond to that invitation of responsibility is a personal choice. Let me say that again. How we respond to the invitation of responsibility is a personal choice. That invitation can and will come in many ways. For some, it comes in the form of a family needing care, a sick loved one needing help, a spouse needing support, a child needing a good mom or a good dad. For others, it comes in the form of the hungry and disadvantaged, needing food or shelter or possibly a job. For some, the invitation comes in their profession. Police officers, firefighters, school teachers, who serve every day they show up for work. Still others find that invitation of responsibility elsewhere, in the companies they support, the small businesses they run, the customers they serve, the patients they treat. They answer that invitation by serving customers, keeping local markets profitable, regional economies healthy, and our nation strong and competitive in a global market. The simple act of being an informed voter and participating in local, state, regional, and national elections is an answer to the invitation of responsibility. And there are millions of men and women, like some of our graduates here today, who answer the invitation of responsibility by serving our nation's military and sacrificing their freedoms to protect ours. With freedom comes responsibility, and everywhere we go, we will find invitations to take responsibility. How we respond to them is a personal choice. A few weeks ago, the city of Boston held its 118th annual Boston Marathon. But it was more than business as usual in the city of Boston this year. Many of us have a hard time forgetting those images of what took place at last year's finish line. So it's fair to say that this year's marathon stood for a little more than a tribute to athleticism. It stood for the resilience of a city and ultimately of our nation. It stood as a symbol of our refusal to alter course in the fear of those that may do us harm. It stood for the abiding hope that's rooted in who we are as a nation, that even though our enemies may commit unspeakable acts, we are strong, and in this case, Boston's strong. We will come together to recover, rebuild, and reunite. On the day of this year's marathon, it was Patriots' Day, and there was a runner who was in the middle of the pack. For almost 26 miles, he ran, he sweated, he pushed himself. And then just a few blocks before the finish line, right in front of the Forum restaurant, where one of the two bombs went off last year, his legs began shaking and he started to go down hard. Another runner, Dave Meyer, just a few yards behind him, noticed he was struggling, caught up with him, wrapped his left arm around his shoulder, lifted him up, and started running with him. But it wasn't enough. The injured runner was just too heavy, and Dave's grip on him was too weak. They were both too exhausted, and they started to go down together. Third runner, a man named Jim Grove, saw the two men about to hit the ground, ran to grab the injured runner's other arm, and the three of them started running together and to pick up the pace toward that finish line. Well, I'm not sure if you know what happens to the human body after running 26 miles, but it's fair to say that these two men were already given their all to complete that race. So stopping to pick up another person took a major surge of energy. Then as the three of them ran down Boylston Street, just blocks from the finish line, that injured runner's legs totally gave out, and that trio started to fall apart. It's when two more runners, Mike Johnson and Kathy Goodwin, saw what was happening and each came up and grabbed the runner's legs, refusing to let him miss out on his personal victory. At that moment, when those two last runners came together and the four strangers lifted the injured runner off his feet and began to move toward that finish line in an act of selfless determination, the entire crowd on both sides of the street erupted in a massive cheer. Phones came out, pictures started being snapped, and people started crying. The scene went viral in a matter of minutes. Then, whether the injured runner was energized by the moment or by the brief reprieve given to him by those four strangers, he asked to be let down so he could cross the finish line by himself. And just as soon as they came together, those four strangers set the runner down and they parted ways to complete the race on their own. But they were united for those brief moments by an invitation of responsibility. You see, we have responsibility that's pervasive. The invitations are all around us. We cannot escape them. Do you see those invitations being addressed to you? Or are you running with your head down? When you feel the tug of responsibility, whether it's an injured runner needing a hand or a coworker being mistreated, or the calling you feel when you drive by that shelter, how will you respond? When the sweat is in your eyes, your calves are burning, your lips are dry and cracked, your feet are swollen, what will your answer be? It took one man to take responsibility and grab that injured runner's arm, and pretty soon 3 more people were on their way to make sure he made it to that finish line. But what would have happened if Dave Meyer had never stepped up in the first place, with that injured runner had finished his race? Our responsibility is pervasive, because there will always be a friend or a stranger in need. There will always be a wrong that needs to be righted. We will always have a choice in how we respond. Some people will make it their entire life's mission to find that next injured runner and push him to the finish line. You may not be the next Mother Teresa, but my hope is that you will begin this next chapter in your lives with your eyes open to the invitations that are being addressed to you every single day. And I know, as people watch you take responsibility without having to be asked, as people watch you live with purpose and determination to be responsible, that others will be inspired to do the same. In closing, I'd like to remind you that all too often it is not the end result or the destination we end up with that matters the most, but rather the journey that should be treasured. Different points along your journey will offer different invitations. Today is a culmination of your response to one of them. The invitation to take responsibility for your future and use higher education as a means to pursue a field of study and a career. The diplomas you receive are symbols of that response and your hard work. My hope and my prayer is that you will continue looking for the invitations of responsibility addressed to you, and that you will respond with a heart of service. You have my heartfelt affection and congratulations. Your hard work and perseverance has paid off. Congratulations again to all of you.